Good morning. The word for you today. Today is Thursday, December 7th, and our devotion today is the second part of moving from failure to success. First things first, Happy Hanukkah. Tonight starts the Festival of Lights. This is a Jewish festival that celebrates the rededication of the temple. So why is this important? Why am I talking about this? Well, Hanukkah is all about the light succeeding over darkness and not being overtaken by the world around you. Now, what do I mean by that? Hanukkah is all about how the Maccabean revolt succeeded in expelling the pagan, the oppressive influences on the Second Temple. At this time, this is the 2nd century, and during this time, they weren't allowed to light the menorahs. These are giant candles. You've seen them. They're the 7-branched candles, and they are emblems of and reminders of God and His holiness. Now, after they revolted, they realized they needed to light the candles in the temple once again, but there was only enough oil for one candle. And so the story of Hanukkah is that over a period of 7 days, of 7 nights, the candle stayed lit. And the 8-day celebration of Hanukkah was instituted by the rabbis as a way to remind us of the glory and the goodness of the Lord. So why is that important? Well, I want to read to you our scripture passage today. It comes out of Proverbs chapter 6, verse 2. I'm going to use my translation, and so it says, "You will be ensnared by the words of your mouth. You will be captured by the words of your mouth." So these two lines sound really similar. In fact, there's only one word that changes, and that's true in the Hebrew as well. This is a 6-word proverb, and all it's saying is it's poetry that is saying the things that you say can and will cause you to be captured. And capturing is this idea of being taken away and being separated from what is good and what you're being called to do. So, how are we going to capture this all together? Well, I think it's pretty simple. When you read our devotion today, one of the very first things it says, a noted psychiatrist remarked that 2 of the saddest words in human vocabulary are "if only." And he goes on to, our devotion writer talks about how, if only I'd been a better parent, or if only I had done this. But I'd like to challenge that. So Hanukkah is a festival that I love, but perhaps the more important festival is Passover, which happens in April, during the month of Nisan. And in Passover, there's a song called Dayenu. I'll say that again, and I want you to say it back to me. Dayenu. D-A-Y-E-N-U. And what it means is it would have been sufficient for us, or it was sufficient us collectively, our sufficiency. And what it's saying is this is a song that is all about the sufficiency of God. And so it starts by a very simple word called ilu. And all ilu means is if only. So according to the psychologist, this should be a sad song, but it's not. When you sing it very peppy, you sing it very high, you sing it very joyfully, because it is a remembrance of all the things that God did for the Israelite people. The first line is Ilu Hotziana, or Hotzianu Mimitzrayim Dayenu. Literally, if only He had brought us, He had taken us out of Egypt, it would have been enough. And so what it does is it walks through these miracles in the Jewish story, in the history of Jesus' people. It walks through the story of Moses, of Joshua, of David, of Solomon, of the exile. And every single time, what it says is, if only God had done that, it would have been enough. It would have been Dayenu. And so, I would like to posit this. I think that in moving from failure to success, we need to reframe how we think of if only. Instead of saying, if only I'd been a better parent, think about the alternative. What is the minimum that I need to do for it to be enough, for it to be sufficient? And that is what we need to ascribe to. And once we get to that minimum, then we say, okay, what's the next minimum? What's the next minimum? What's the next minimum? And so, yeah, you're going to mess up. You're not going to meet everything. We all know that we may do things that aren't perfect, and that's okay. But I think the message of these holidays, besides remembering the holiness of God, besides remembering the goodness and the completeness of God, is that we are called to remember that if only God had done one thing for us, it would have been sufficient. But because of the many things that he has done, we are beyond blessed and we should give thanks. So when thinking about moving from failure to success, think about all the things you did that were good. And yes, there's going to be failures, but remember, every single good thing that you've done, every single win that you've had, when we attribute to God and when we see the way that God has influenced that, we realize that the Lord continues to work in our lives to this day, and that failure to us is not failure to God, because God can turn our failures into gigantic successes. Have a nice day.